The quarterback battle. Drew Aller versus Dante Moore. Who has the better QB? It should be Penn State, but at least early in the season, it doesn't seem that way.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover to talk about Penn State versus Oregon in depth. Once again, my name is Zach Seiko, and I am your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. He is Brian Smith, the recruiting expert here with the Locked On Podcast Network, host of The Portal, which talks all things recruiting, which we will get into today. Insane prospect visitor list that is lined up for the whiteout game. Oregon being an underdog in this game. Should the Ducks actually be favored? We're going to talk more about the ins and outs of the matchups overall. But we start with Drew Aller and Dante Moore. Who has the advantage in the quarterback category? Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Oregon fans are pretty adamant that Dante Moore has already transcended past what Drew Aller can be, will be at this point in time through just a few games. Here's the thing though, Brian. You and I kind of step back and say, okay, let's break this down a little further. But Dante Moore, through the first 4 games that Oregon has played, has looked significantly better. And then given the competition that Drew Aller has faced, Villanova, FIU, Nevada, it's not exactly a gauntlet. Nevada was a good game, but then after that, just crumbled against the next 2 weaker opponents, whereas Dante Moore looked elite against Power 4 schools. So, does Oregon have the better QB than Penn State?
I don't think they necessarily have the better one, and more importantly, do they have the better one for the environment and the situation.
Okay.
He's a junior, but he hasn't played a lot. He played some his freshman year at UCLA, but then he got benched, then he transferred, sit out last year basically. Now he's been thrust into the lineup, and they haven't really played anybody. So Oregon, he's got 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. He completed 80% of his passes in one of the games. He's played very, very well. But they're running over teams. They've got good running backs. DeCorian Moore, the true freshman receiver out of the Dallas area, is a big-time player. He's throwing to guys. So you got to give credit to the overall operation. And again, can that all transplant from Autzen to Beaver Stadium in that environment under the light, all that? It's a very low floor, high ceiling scenario.
Okay.
I just don't know if they'll be able to do it when they have to. And he's going to have to hit some 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 12s for them to win the game. It's possible, but that's a really tough situation.
And while I say Power 4, right? Oklahoma State, Oregon State, Northwestern. Okay, Northwestern is absolutely a quality win. But these are not the Oregon State and Oklahoma State teams that are presently here in their current situation. I would have expected nothing less from Oregon to absolutely blow out any of those teams. And then when you watch the game, you see it. Oh, Oklahoma State is that bad. Oregon State is that bad. So I don't want to take away from the matchup per se, but I also want to put it into perspective of there wasn't too much resistance, and Oregon is designed to put up points the way that it does. Dante Moore should have looked really good in these games, especially, here's the thing with Oregon, though, compared to Penn State. And we're going to talk about, because Drew Aller, to an extent, looks broken this season, at least over the recent 2 games. So can he fix everything before the whiteout? Dante Moore and this offense still need to build chemistry, still need to build a rapport to an extent, right? Because it's new QB, new running backs, new offensive line, new pass catchers. You don't even have Evan Stewart back for this season. Your leading pass catcher from a season ago. It's transfers, it's freshmen, it's everything. Those players need their best plays. They need to start figuring it out now so they're not scrambling middle to late of the season. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, I agree. Look, Penn State, they brought in all these good receivers. They did the things they needed to help Drew. The defense was already really good.
Yes.
I don't think they need to adjust all that much right now. It's really this simple. Drew just has to throw the ball more on time and be more in sync with his receivers.
Yes.
That's a yes, no. And I know that's not a very friendly one because it's very important, but that's it. There is no other discussion. There's nothing else that Penn State needs. O-line's good. Running back room is fantastic. Defense has been very solid. You want to stay healthy and all that. But if those things continue, like a worst case scenario, they'd go like 10-2 this year. That's how I would see it. If the passing game gets fixed beginning this week, they could go 12-0. That's it. So, I mean, I don't think they really need to tinker much, but they're on the right track in general if Drew takes those steps. And it is a little mystifying that he hasn't been better so far this year, but it's college football, man. They're college kids. Things are volatile in general, so we got to remember that.
Well, the same thing that I say about Oregon with, hey, it's a new look offense, right? I know some of these guys were backups, but it's all still new moving parts. You mentioned the offensive line and the running backs. The passing attack for Penn State is completely brand new to an extent. Okay, you have Drew Aller, but it's Devontae Ross, who hasn't played a lot of football with Aller, and he was banged up through training camp, through the offseason, right? Trevor Pena shows up after May. He wasn't there for winter workouts. He wasn't there for spring ball. He's a starter, which is good, but he hasn't played that much football and hasn't even had that much practice. And then Kyron Hudson, okay, and it was the Tyler Warren show a year ago. You don't have Tyler Warren anymore, but you have this cluster of tight ends that played but didn't play a whole lot. They weren't factored into the offense a whole lot, and now they're asked to pick up the responsibility from there. So you have 3 new tight ends that are all divvying up the responsibilities that eventually, I think that especially Luke Reynolds being a former 5-star will get better, will get more reliable. But then new wide receiver 1, new wide receiver 2, new slot wide receiver. All of Drew Aller's targets are brand new.
That's part of it, man. It's continuity. I think if Pena had been in spring, they'd have been in a better spot. And if he'd have been at Penn State, as you know, he wasn't there like January, February going through workouts. All that's time that you sit down and watch film with the quarterback, understand the coordinator scheme. It's little things. So they've got a pretty high floor from the beginning, which I'm sure makes Penn State fans happy. But if they don't start hitting that this game, they'll come home with an L, even though they're in Beaver Stadium. Oregon's going to score. They got players everywhere. At some point, Penn State has to be able to throw the ball when everybody in the world knows it's an automatic passing situation against an elite defense. They're going to find that out. I'll talk about some stats here in a minute, but Oregon's front is pretty nasty.
Yeah, and that's why we have the second segment because, right, Oregon's they've looked so much better. The eye test says otherwise, so should they even be favored? Again, we'll get to that in just a moment. Just kind of a final thought here on Drew Aller. We know that he has the arm strength. Accuracy, it's there at times. He'll miss the simple ones, but then how did you make that throw? It's almost at the spectrum of results for Drew Aller. It's truly all or nothing at some points. The thing that I will say about Aller, routinely more often than not, he does not make the detrimental mistake. I know he did against Notre Dame, right? That one was bad. But other times he doesn't make that egregious interception that will cost Penn State. He doesn't put Penn State in costly situations, but he needs to be able to propel them forward a little more when the ground game and the offensive line aren't playing at their best. That's kind of the give and take of this.
Yeah, he's pretty conservative, and you should be when you have the better team. 9 out of 10 games you play.
Yeah.
But those games don't count when it's Oregon because that team has as much, if not more talent than Penn State. So you've got to make a couple wow throws, which he can do. But now can you not miss the easy check down that gets you in 2nd and 4? That's the play that it's so weird because you're right. You can't miss the short ones. That has zero to do with coaching. He's been coached forever. That is on Drew.
Okay.
He gets the yips sometimes, and everybody's done it. Like second baseman throwing to first should be an automatic out every time. Some guys get the yips on that too. But then they get the one up the middle and throw off their back foot going away from the bag, and they put it on the money. It drives you nuts. That's Drew Aller in a nutshell. So if he does that against Oregon and has the yips, they'll be in too many 3rd and 7s. 3rd and 7 against Oregon, not a good time.
And that's what Penn State's going to go, which is why, I mean, they're going to lean on the ground game. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of the matchup, okay? What is Penn State going to do? What is Oregon going to do? Again, Oregon, per the eye test, looks a lot better than what Penn State has been over the first few weeks. So, should the Ducks be favored? Well, we are going to discuss that and more coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make neighborhoods feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, these are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Take Irving's in State College, for example. Cafe that serves bagels, coffee, baked goods, your favorite place just to sit down, enjoy a meal, or a nice cup of coffee. Those are the local spots. It's those kinds of places where you can walk in, everybody knows your name, the staff are like family, and they've been serving the community for years. These local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more, but before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. College football is back, and we all couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing else like it. But let's be real for a second. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up Gametime right now, and in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And yes, tickets are available on Gametime for Penn State versus Oregon. Go check them out. And if you've never been to Beaver Stadium, you get a cool feature where you get to see your point of view ahead of time. So for the whiteout, you don't have to second guess what seat you're choosing because you'll know ahead of time with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Depending on where you're looking, the line's going to move. It's going to change. Per our friends at FanDuel, as we hit record on this show, Penn State is favored by 3.5 points. Money line -170 if you're thinking Oregon, +140, and the total set at 52. Brian, I think that's fair across the board. I think Penn State should be at least a field goal favorite going into this game because, yes, the whiteout matters, the road trip matters. Even where Oregon choosing to stay in a town over 45 minutes away, that's, a half point, right? Just to really, not to split hairs, but all those things matter. It's the travel, it's everything else that's involved, and Penn State's coming off of a bye. But Oregon, again, what they did to Northwestern, but more importantly still, Oregon State and Oklahoma State, those are statement type of victories despite the situations that some of those other schools are in. So Oregon has looked so much better than Penn State. Even though Penn State is winning decisively against these other teams, it doesn't have that. There's points left on the football field, I suppose. I can sit here and say that. I agree with that. So does that change your mind when you're looking at this? Because for me, it doesn't. I look at it as a game-by-game basis. Just because Penn State didn't do XYZ against FIU doesn't mean that that's the case against Oregon.
I don't disagree with that in general. My take is slightly different. It's just that Oregon is out to – they don't want to beat people. They want to embarrass them. They're on a mission that I don't know what started that. I mean, even Spencer McLaughlin, our buddy that runs Locked On College Football and Locked On Ducks, he didn't think the Ducks had a prayer in hell of winning the title this year. And he's as big a Ducks fan as you're going to meet.
Yeah.
So he has been shocked at how well they have just come out on fire too, Dante included, but it's the defense as well. Like the rush defense is 40th. It's just okay because they take all their starters out in the fourth quarter, but they're 9th in pass defense, they're 12th in total defense, and they're 9th in points. They get after it. So if you can't pass the ball consistently, that's what Penn State fans are worried about. Are you going to be able to score touchdowns when you get down to the red zone? Like you got to be able to fit the ball into small windows because their D-line, like just a few of their guys, 270, 330, 263, 305, 290. Like Ashton Porter's 290 and plays the end. That's just – they've got really big guys. You're not going to run the ball on them like you do most teams. Penn State's O-line might be the best in the country. But you're going to have moments where you just flat out need Drew to be accurate. again, that's it. There's no extra to it. He's just got to throw it where it's got to go. So I get the angst from Penn State fans. And looking at this defense, it makes me a little concerned. They're like second and third quarters, they're giving up 2 yards a carry because of the rush defensive stats. They're just very consistent. They got a really good defensive staff. So I think that's where the matchup gets really fun. Oregon's deep against Penn State's offense.
Let's dive deeper into the individual matchups, because I've caught some pushback from saying that, hey, Penn State's going to be able to run the football, and they're going to be able to run the football fairly effectively. I don't look at just the total yards. Look at the 79-yard carry that Northwestern had late in the game. That goes against, no, that's not what I'm saying. I agree that Oregon's run defense is good, but I look at the interior of the defensive line that does not have Derek Harmon anymore. Yeah. And veterans from last year's core, and are now turning to freshmen right now. And Penn State's offensive line is all back from that Big Ten championship game. The running backs that combined for over 200 yards, they ran for 100 apiece, and Singleton had 10 yards a carry, is back from that game. So Oregon's interior of the defensive line takes somewhat of a step back, whereas Penn State's consistent across the board with its run scheme. Yep. I would like to think that Penn State's going to be able to run the football pretty effectively, especially at home.
I think there's some understanding with that. I also think a lot of the Oregon's freshmen and sophomore D linemen from last, their junior class was their special. They had like 10 D linemen in one recruiting class. It was insane. I don't know how that transpired, but it did. Yeah. Anyway, some of those guys are the key. And then their most important player is Uyunglele. Yes, it's DJ's younger brother, Mateo. Yes. He's a special player. Like, he's got 3 sacks already, and as a pass rusher, his grade from PFF is 90.6. He can play on either end. You can move him inside. He's the key to the game on 3rd and long. How does Penn State handle him, and can they do it one-on-one? Those will be NFL matchups. I don't know who's going to win, but the winner of that matchup overall in the night's probably going to be your winner in the game. Because Drew, I mean, he can move a little bit, but he's not a better athlete than Uyunglele. And those guys are going to get after him. Oregon's defense has a ton of speed.
And then I look at Oregon's secondary. It's same thing that I say about the defensive line. Hey, it's different. It's younger. It's inexperienced. Dylan Thieneman's really good, right? And they have how much depth that they've been able to pick up through the transfer portal. Even if these guys weren't going to be starters right away, they've still picked up a ton of depth. I'm surprised that a player like Brandon Finney is a starter at this point in time. I mean, that speaks to him. That speaks to what he's been able to do at his time at Oregon. And, Penn State was recruiting him and should have landed him up until Oregon kind of swooped in and was able to secure that commitment. But that secondary is young. It's inexperienced. It's talented, but it kind of fits this common theme overall of what you kind of said before about Dante Moore. It's the vitality of vitality of it all, is that you could be really good and have these explosive plays and tons of turnovers and everything else, but you could also, have some cracks in the foundation and let some big plays through that you probably shouldn't more often than not. And teams like Oklahoma State and Oregon State don't execute. Okay. No. I saw their potential big plays that were unraveling in that Oregon State game that didn't happen because Oregon State self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, Oregon State, Oklahoma State, holy cow, that game was over before they got the kickoff. Those teams they compounded their problems. I don't think Drew will do that, really. The only concern I would have with him is he gets in his own head once in a while. He needs a good start. And I'm sure they'll script the first 10, 15 plays. If the first drive or so doesn't go well for Penn State, that would be when I would be concerned. Because you should do well with your scripted plays because you practice them literally. It should be like 70% or higher passing, and it should be pretty hard to stop. That's every team, and he's a senior. If that goes well, and I mean really well, then Oregon's defense could be in trouble because if he's in a rhythm, obviously the arm strength and all that are there, and he just knows the offense. So it's a two-way street. I don't expect it to be one or the other necessarily, but I don't expect a real big part of a middle ground either. So which one will it be? Because Oregon's defense is good, but you brought up a good point about their second. They lost like 6 guys total, not all starters, but
it's chemistry.
Yeah,
It's not a lack of talent, it's chemistry.
Yeah, it's like offensive line's the biggest chemistry spot on the field, but secondary's got some of that too.
Yeah.
And they lost a bunch of guys. Thieneman was important, and they got some elite freshmen and sophomores. Are those guys going to be able to handle Pena one-on-one on a 3rd and 4? That's a tall order. Yeah. And that's why I think this game will probably go back and forth, but we'll see.
Total right now, and I know weather could change. I don't think it's supposed to storm or anything like that, but we could see some rain, which would benefit Penn State in my mind. But that total at 52, Brian, briefly before we talk about this insane prospect list, I like that. I like more points in this game because I still think there's more left to be said for Penn State's offense, and Oregon's offense obviously is what it is. It's the foundation of what they want to do. They want to score. They want to score some more. They want to embarrass teams. So I think at 52.5, that's around what, give or take. This score is projected at 28-24. I mean, I could see both teams getting into the 30s, right?
It's possible. If it gets rainy and slick, you could see a lot of offensive players falling down, the linemen falling down. And
more conservative, running the ball. Yeah.
East-West, like Penn State does a great job with outside zone. You might have a huge hole out there and the running back just falls down. I don't care what cleats you're using. When it's raining and the water's bouncing off the turf, it's not a good time. It's really hard to make that immediate cut. You'll see a 20-yard gain become a 2-yard loss. And that'll go both ways. So the weather will have an impact on that. So I'm not a gambler. I wouldn't touch the over-under because of the weather. That makes a big deal. The other part of it is still what you're bringing up. Like every now and then, receiver keeps running, but the DB falls down. Then you get a free touchdown too. So it could go either way on that. It happens. It happens. The Ducks are obviously used to poor weather. Oregon's a state that gets pretty crappy weather, but everybody falling down and slipping and sliding. I hope it's dry because it's just more fun to watch. But that's me.
Yeah, we want for a clean, like I said, elite on elite, great on great. No kind of excuses or inconsistencies that really, I want this to be the best version of Penn State versus the best version of Oregon, because that will tell us a lot about both these teams moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, the future, high school recruiting, it is an insane visitor list. Insane doesn't even justify it. The amount of top elite players that are visiting for this game, it's going to have ramifications for the future, but for both Penn State and Oregon. We're going to talk about just who you should know about, basically everybody. And that's coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIH Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Brian, to finish things up, let's talk about this list of prospects that are visiting, and it's because there's a lot to this, though. It's not only that, Penn State, they're playing Oregon. This is an uncharacteristic type of matchup as it is regular season in Pennsylvania, in Beaver Stadium, right? It's the whiteout. Penn State hasn't had that elite matchup type of whiteout game in quite some time. I mean, maybe you could make the argument for Auburn back in 2021, but even that wasn't an Auburn team that contending for a national title, that is a college football playoff contender. Oregon is that. So that is why you're seeing prospects left and right line up, because of two reasons. One, it's the matchup, but two, this is a hub for national recruiting all in one space. It's not just Oregon. Penn State, Brian, this is something that we've talked about, alluded to, teased in some capacity, that Penn State continues to branch out. It's dominate the state first and foremost for Pennsylvania, but then it goes beyond that. It's not just let's get a couple prospects in New Jersey, Maryland, DC, Virginia, the kind of the routine thing for Penn State. It's now you have elite prospects from Texas, California. Yeah, okay, you get Florida routinely sometimes, but it's those other states that, whoa, Oregon's recruiting in California. Oregon's recruiting in Texas. Penn State doesn't really do that. No, now they are. So now you're seeing more prospects because there's so much crossover. You want to talk about crossover in recruiting with the way that Penn State and Oregon are going up head to head in these recruiting battles.
Yeah, Kennedy Brown, he's a kid that I saw at Under Armour's Future 50, along with John Meredith, Elijah Haven, Maxwell Hiller. 4 of the best players in the class of 27 are all going to be on campus. 2 of those kids are from Texas. One of them's from Louisiana, and then Hiller's your classic in-state kid. He's from Coatesville. Maybe the best offensive lineman in the country if it's not Kennedy Brown. Like, they got kids from all over. They got a kid from San Diego, Johnson, that's from Cathedral Catholic, that USC wants, that Notre Dame wants, that Oregon wants. Everybody does. Asante Gales, he's a kid at IMG Academy that's coming in. He is tremendous. He reminds me a lot of Mekhi Lemon, the receiver at USC. He's a very similar style player. This is an incredible list, and they got kids from Chicago, Indianapolis. They got kids from North Carolina, Maryland, everywhere. This is a unusual list for Penn State, but it's kind of what it's come to. You have to get underclassmen on campus from around the nation. Ohio State does it. Texas does it. Florida does. Everybody does now. If you don't do that, you're behind the 8 ball. And by the way, great job by everybody in the back office for Penn State, not just the coaches, but their recruiting staff. This is well done.
If you want to keep up in recruiting, which means if you want to keep up in the future of college football, this is how you have to do it. And Penn State's talked about this too. It's not only selling the recruit on the visit right now while they're still, impressionable, they're still going through the nuances of it all. It's also just building relationships for the future, because with the transfer portal, you get a second opportunity potentially to re-recruit somebody. So if Penn State isn't their number 1 choice right now at this given moment, maybe they're their number 2 choice down the road, and then there's the transfer portal, and you can bring them back in because you made strong enough of an impression. AJ Harris, for example, that was one that Georgia won. They won that recruitment. Goes into the portal, Penn State, because they made enough of an impression on him, they were able to re-recruit him, so to speak. And I'm not saying that's just because of the whiteout, but it's moments like this over the recruiting process that you capitalize on to get that advantage in recruiting.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you get them on campus now. And like you said, the portal changes the game. You don't always have to come in first, at least right away. It's an unfortunate way to look at it, but that is the nature of what's going on. By the way, I'm sure there's a lot of kids at Florida and UCLA, et cetera, that are thinking about hitting the portal too. I know that's common. Let's be honest. That's common. Yeah. You have to be able to look at it from a broad perspective. Some of these kids you may not think you have much of a chance at. And believe me, just from talking to college coaches for over 20 years, they know when they're in the lead or have a shot. Sometimes you bring kids in just because of the perspective. It's the school they're from and all that. Penn State's covered that area as well because they got elite programs. Again, they got IMG kid on campus. They got kids from the Houston area, kids from San Diego, everywhere. They're representing in every possible way they can. This is how you recruit at an elite level and improve your roster right here.
Well, we'll finish because most of the prospects that are in attendance, again, it's about making strong impressions earlier because 2026 is almost finished. And I say almost, but the visitors are 27, 28. So we'll learn more about them collectively as we have time to discuss them because their commitment, their recruitments are far from over. But 2026, hey, guess who's going to be in attendance? 5-star Emmanuel Iheanacho. 4-star defensive lineman Carter Gooden, somebody that we've talked about. And you mentioned UCLA here, Brian. Penn State now has a chance to make that impression, that final impression to say, hey, let's add to the defensive line room here with someone with a ton of upside. So 2027, 2028, while that's the priority here, 2026 is far from finished. I'm not here to say that they flip Emmanuel Iheanacho. It is good for him to go see the team that he's committed to because it's not going to be easy to get to an Oregon game this season. So why not go to the school? Why not go to the place that's 3 or 4 hours away driving to see your team? So I'm glad that he gets that. And in a whiteout situation too, right? But I look at the opportunity here with Penn State to, hey, Penn State's still not going to not try to recruit Emmanuel Iheanacho, but I'm focused on Carter Gooden because UCLA is obviously going through the coaching change. Penn State was that number 2 school. I got to imagine they seal the deal here if they do things right with this recruitment.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. You want to use your visits to not only embolden the kids that are committed, some of the guys that you think you're going to get, and like Emmanuel, you have to always have a spot open for somebody like that. They're covering their bases on that with the 26 class too. Penn State's got a good class, but adding somebody like Gooden, et cetera, again, they're doing their due diligence. This is what you do. And more coaches are going to get fired. I'm sure there's somebody, I don't even know which one it will be, but somebody that was committed down at Virginia Tech, and they recruit the same area, state of Virginia, D.C. There's probably one of those kids that will eventually get on campus too. Penn State's doing the right things.
And that is where we will finish this Locked On crossover. My name is Zach Seiko, your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, daily source for all things Penn State sports. He is Brian Smith, the recruiting expert, college football expert in general for the Locked On Podcast Network, hosts The Portal, Locked On Seminoles, does all kinds of college football coverage here in podcast form. So thank you so much for tuning in, for joining us. Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, matchups, predictions you got, recruits that you are really excited for in the future, whether it's a Penn State target or an Oregon target. And Brian, thank you so much for the time as always. It's great to have these conversations, and finally a consequential football game for Penn State. So I'm glad we get to preview it a little more in depth here. So thank you for the time as always.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.